Hello there and welcome back my friends, welcome back to another video. In this video we are looking at aquarium sharks. Now unfortunately, unless you own an aquarium roughly the size of your own house, keeping a saltwater shark is something most people just will not be able to do. Of course, sharks are kept in captivity in many public aquariums, and that's an example of the kind of systems that you need to keep a shark alive. You can have a shark aquarium, but unfortunately you cannot have an aquarium shark. Yes, bamboo sharks are traded quite frequently within the hobby, however they still get to around 4 feet. So any actual shark really isn't something you're going to be able to keep at home. There are, however, some freshwater fish which are called sharks. Even though they're not really sharks, they look vaguely like a shark, and we're going to be looking at them and seeing their basic care requirements, whether or not you should actually have one in your aquarium, and do they act like a shark. The first fish we're going to talk about is a very common one, and it's called the Barra Shark. But actually in the UK and some other countries it's called the silver shark. So there's a bit of overlap there in what it's called, but they're both the same fish. So Barra Sharks are very often sold in the aquarium hobby at very small sizes. They generally come in at around 1 to 2 inches, and they're crammed into sales tanks and very frequently sold in singles or in pairs or in fact in groups to general community aquariums, and a lot of the time they're sold to tanks that are really unsuitable. Barra sharks get very big. In fact, they can get up to around a foot. So if you think these are sold quite frequently in the aquarium to aquariums at around 60 litres plus, they're really not something that should be going into that size aquarium. They do, however, look very much like a shark, so we're really spot on with the fact that they're called Barra sharks or silver sharks. Now, to keep these fish, really you want a very big tank. I mean, you really want at least 3 to 6 of these for them to be really happy, and at a foot each you've got 6 foot of fish, so you're going to need a very large tank, 150 to 200 gallons minimum for their adult requirement. Barra sharks or silver sharks need a lot of room to swim around, and that is why they need such big aquariums. So you've got a foot of fish that needs a lot of space to swim around. You're going to need a big aquarium indeed. But if you've got a big tank, then they're really nice fish to have. Actually, I quite like a silver shark. They do take quite a long time to grow, so you can sort of stage them. You can start them in a smaller tank and move up as you go, but you have to make sure you have that bigger tank to move them onto. In terms of where they swim, they tend to sort of roam around the entire tank, but they will stay more in the mid to top area of the tank. They are, though, a very nice fish. Even when they're adults, they're kind of semi-aggressive, so you can keep them with quite a lot of fish. They have very small mouths and don't really attack or eat anything in your aquarium. They're not going to be chasing your fish around all the time trying to eat them and taking chunks out of them. They're actually quite a nice community fish. They're what I would describe as a semi-aggressive fish, so they will hold their own against most tank mates, but they're not going to spend a lot of time chasing and attacking other tank mates. They're quite good to be kept with pretty much anything. However, you don't want to keep them with anything too aggressive because they can be picked on even when they're fully grown. The next fish we're actually going to talk about are two very similar fish. So similar, in fact, I'm going to lump them together because their habits, diet and temperament are pretty much the same. The only real difference is the coloration. There are other varieties of colour as well. You can get albino versions of both of these fish. Same fish, just a different colour morph. So these fish are the red-tailed black shark and the ruby shark. Obviously you can see the difference. One is completely black, kind of blue iridescent with a bright red tail, and then the other one is slightly lighter. It doesn't get as dark black, but it has red fins all over. However, they are very similar, and they're more related to a carp than they are related to a shark. But they do look really cool. They look a lot like a shark, and thankfully they're a little bit more suitable for a smaller tank than the silver shark. However, these are no small fish, and temperament wise they're really aggressive, or at least can be really aggressive. It really depends on which kind of tank inhabitants you have with them. If you have these fish with more aggressive tank mates, so if you have them with things like cichlids or larger, more territorial fish, then they won't be as aggressive towards those fish because the fish they're with will hold their own. However, unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, both of these species are sold to small aquarium community tanks, and they're really unsuitable for this. When red tails and ruby sharks are small, say up to 3 inches, they're actually quite nice fish. They're not too chasey and aggressive. However, once they start to put a bit of weight on, their temperament will change, and when they get to this kind of size, they're going to be chasing everything. Unfortunately, they are missold a lot. They go into 125, sometimes even smaller. Also, they're sold in pairs quite a lot, and this is just because the people selling them aren't careful enough or don't have enough training to provide the proper environment to sell them to. So they're sold quite badly to customers, and it's not explained to people how aggressive these fish can be. So it's really important to keep these fish in the right environment, and they are actually a really nice fish if kept in the right environment, but unfortunately a lot of the time they're not. But I am a fan of these fish. They do look shark-like. They hang around the bottom of the tank, always sort of nibbling on algae and stuff like that in the tank. So they are quite a cool fish, but just be aware of the temperament and the size that they can get to. One good thing about the red-tailed black shark being sold in the hobby is the fact that in the wild it's really endangered, critically endangered, because of environmental habitat loss. Basically, people have dammed rivers and dug up rivers and just destroyed its natural environment, and being popular in the aquarium hobby has kind of saved it because it's bred now and it's pretty widespread and easily available to fish shops. Buying them actually is keeping the species alive. The next fish is a fish that just should not be sold to aquariums, full stop. Not even if you've got a big aquarium. They just shouldn't be sold. I'm totally against them being in the aquarium hobby, but unfortunately they are, and that is the iridescent shark, or the pangasius. Pangasius are monstrous fish. Really, if you see one of these for sale in a shop, don't buy it, because you can't hold these long term. They need a public aquarium sized tank for their long time health. These pangasius are too big for 99.9% of people's tanks, and you shouldn't buy them. However, there is a fish that you can get that's very similar and it doesn't get too big, and I really like them. It's called the Bari catfish. So a Bari catfish, it does look quite shark-like. They're quite cool. They hang around the bottom. They can be kept in groups. They get to around 4 to 5 inches, and they have all the characteristics you'd want out of a small catfish, and a catfish that looks vaguely shark-like. So there are lots of fish on the market that look like sharks. So pretty much every catfish can be described as an adjective shark. When you name something a shark, it sells more, it's more attractive, and people are going to want it. That's just because people like to dress things up to sell them. If it's called a whatever shark, then you're going to want it more than if it's called its Latin name, and that's just the way it goes. So I hope you enjoyed this list. There are many other different species of fish that look like a shark or are called shark, but these are the most popular ones, and these are the most common that you'll see on the market. So if you have liked this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this kind of content. And once again, thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.